Hello, and this is Colin Dawson with another edition of Lockdown Movie Reviews. Just to say, out here with it, I've always seen this one. This is another one that's, it was older, back from when I was in middle school. The parents liked it, the grandparents probably didn't really know this one. And I remember they all went out with their sisters and everybody and their husbands for a movie night with them. And I found this one on late at night here just the other night and I'm going to watch it. It's New Jack City. I will have to say this one was absolutely not a letdown in any way. This one had the old things about where drug dealers were basically the only way you were going to move up out there with everything. That or else you had the special access into Washington or something else. And everything was about crime and punishment back in the early 90s, late 80s. I think the acting was spot on. I think Wesley Snipes played a very dynamic, very open person, someone who was ruthless and a killer, but yet at the same time, when he said that he was his brother's keeper and wasn't going to let anybody go to jail, and he had to make some of the hard decisions in it. And you could see how he can be so sorrowful and almost be like a young child out there deep in his eyes as tears are rolling down his face as he's holding back and still able to control his voice. The rest of the time in the movie, he's just a nice guy in a way that parties hard, does business, and yes, there can be consequences. And it shows a very ranged myriad of emotions. With the police, I think it shows, especially with Ice-T and Chris Rock, some deep meanings in their character, even though they have some very flat parts in their character. And it gets a little stereotypical, but they bring it straight to where it needs to be. And in a way, it's the fact that it's the routine of what it is in a job, which also shows a very good acting situation. There are a lot of things that were only put in. They were probably cherry picked from different cases that we probably maybe never will hear about. That they have a military situation on it or something else like that. And granted, there's some things in the trial that speeches are made, other things like that, and it doesn't dwell on the trial so much. It doesn't dwell on the ins and out of law and order. It dwells on the actual police work. And yes, not everything in police work has people shooting Uzis and Tech 9s at them, and it shows the camaraderie of some of the last times of what would be a chairman of the board situation for crime. And I know they probably have that nowadays, but that's really not even in the USA anymore. I think one of the actors here showed some of the best parts in it. Judd Nelson. He actually showed where there was this one guy and there was this big shootout scene, and they were fighting back and forth. And this other police officer had to shoot the guy to save his life. Guy fell down, was about to come up and shoot him again, and they had the animosity back and forth. And the original cop who saved Judd's life, Judd saved him right then. And in a way, the guy that was there, he was a stereotypical actor, and I wish I had his name here with me right now. But he was very good and instrumental, showing himself in different parts of the movie. And he showed the loyalty back then in the day of high crime and everything else between people, where it was like you made your own family and nobody cared, even if you weren't. And I will have to say that I do think that this movie, if you want just a good action police drama, and yes, this does carry an R rating, and there are some scenes where you should probably leave the kids out of it. It is a 9 out of 10 to basically right at a 10. Do I think that everything goes along with it? Do I think they really tried with it? And I've heard some things about this movie. I was just so big with the friends that were able to go and see it when it first came out. They actually used in one or two of the house shooting scenes real live ammunition. And it's really an interesting movie. And it really is very realistic for at the time of everyone at that time. It really does, in my own mind. While you're going to see a lot of people who are just normal on the side of the road dealing drugs, back then stakes were high. Stakes were everything. And it does show what it is once you reach that level, past the street corner and everything else, where it was the new modern version of the mafia or organized crime. It wasn't even really mafia, I'd say, but I mean the corporate situation over it. And it's made light of in movies nowadays, but in a way it's kind of like the last real macho, real man's man crime syndicate movie. Everything else afterwards, while it's good, I'd say it's that level right underneath this movie here with New Jack City. And in the ending, you can say justice wasn't served, then it was served, then it wasn't served. And in a way, it shows a disconnect between Washington and those people, and then even those that make it at the top of the crime syndicate. There's a disconnect. And I would recommend watching it. And I do think that it's probably the last of the real manly mafia crime situations out there. Or else, I'm sorry, I keep saying mafia, but organized, business orientated man crime rings. I give this, again, 9 out of 10, and 2 enjoyable thumbs up. If you got time, watch this movie, leave the kids at home, and just think back to those old days, right around the 90s, before the economy took off, before internet, cell phones were everywhere, and just realize it's the last of those big hoorah days, so to speak of. Colin James Dawson, over and out.